morning. We're going to call the February 28th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Freda.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Moran.
Here.
Ortega. Aye. Reinhardt.
Here.
Jean.
Here.
And Matas Castillo.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll turn to Commissioner Ortega for our land acknowledgement this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life. And some have lived on this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connections across all barriers of heritage and difference. Excuse me. We are standing on the ancestral lands of the Dakota people. We want to acknowledge the Ojibwe, the Ho-Chunk, and the other nations of people who call this place home. We pay respect to their elders past and present. Please take a moment to consider the treaties made by the tribal nations that entitle non-Native people to live and work on traditional Native lands. Consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today, and please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortega. We have the agenda of February 28th, 2023 presented for approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Freda.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran. And Matas Castillo.
Aye. We have the minutes from February 21, 2023 presented for approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Freda.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran. And Matas Castillo.
Aye. Return to Commissioner Ortega for our administrative item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 3, Ramsey County Vision, Mission, and Goals.
Pull.
That's it.
Since we only have one item, let's do
Okay.
a second. And,
Second.
Thank you. And now we'll move to discussion.
You know, I wasn't.
But yes, good plan. Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, if there were more, the reason that I pulled it to discuss it is because I think that it's important that the public hear and understand just how important our mission, vision, and goals are, and how we are. I have spoken many times, and I know all of us have, when we talk about Ramsey County and what we do as a board, we don't just put words on paper, we live them. They are what we do. And I think that that's clear in all of the work that we have done. And so our vision, mission, and goals, and I'll just read them into the record. Vision, a vibrant community where all are valued and thrive. Mission, a county of excellence working with you to enhance our quality of life. And the goals, 1 is to strengthen individual, family, and community health, safety, and well-being through effective safety net services, innovative programming, prevention and early intervention, and environmental stewardship. 2, cultivate economic prosperity and invest in neighborhoods with concentrated financial poverty through proactive leadership and inclusive initiatives that engage all communities in decisions about our future. 3, enhance access to opportunity and mobility for all residents and businesses through connections to education, employment, and economic development throughout our region. And 4, model forward-thinking investment, fiscal accountability and transparency through professional, operational, financial management, and performance management. And Madam Chair, I think one of the most important things of all the words in all of this are the words all. We are inclusive, we are intentionally equity-minded, and trying to make sure that we make a better life and do what we can every single day to improve the quality of the lives and the safety and the well-being of our community every single day. And so I'm assuming that it probably would have been pulled by someone else as well, but I was just very excited about making sure that people understood that these, again, are not just words on paper. That's right. It's the action that we do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. I know I've had many discussions with all of you over the last several days as we have seen violence in our community, as we had conversations around fiscal accountability in the sheriff's office and how that's delivered, and the kind of narrative is that somehow one is not connected to the other, or they are connected, and really thinking about how we do our work. And I think that's why it's so important that we have these vision, mission, values, and our goals that we're affirming today, because it really demonstrates the way in which we do our work here and how they're connected. I know Commissioner Fretham and I had a great conversation this morning about the amount of investment we are doing upstream that's critically important, that actually leads to the prevention of crime and harm to our community, and that this is really our opportunity to demonstrate that. It is the way that we are reaffirming the importance and the way that we do our work and our values, and just really wanted to appreciate all of you. I know when we had our strategic planning session earlier this year, it was a great session, really demonstrating the team effort here around this table, the collaboration, and the care and dedication to our entire Ramsey County community and everyone here that has chosen Ramsey County as a home to make sure that they are all valued and thrive. So I want to open it up to any other comments or discussion. Yes, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for those words. I just want to say thank you to you as the chair of our board for leading us and being that voice in our community of our vision, mission, and goals. You know, I hear you talk about it all the time. I actually hear all of us talk about it a lot. And so thank you for that. I want to thank our county manager and all of our deputy county manager and our entire staff for living these values as well. I'm hearing them in a lot of the work in most of the work that we're doing. And so I just want to say how much I appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. Yes, Commissioner Moran.
So, good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
Good morning.
As a fairly new person here, one of the things that I have come to know and see and believe is that Ramsey County Board lives out their vision and mission and the goals, and do that work through a very inclusive process that is about the whole board. And so, you know, as I look at the goals, and this is for community, because we're working hard to make sure that we are supporting all, right? And the number 4 goal is to model forward-thinking investment, fiscal accountability. Let me say that again, fiscal accountability. We are very respectful of that. And transparency through professional, operational, financial management, and performance management. So what I have learned and know and see that as a board, we're one board, right? Each and every one of us. When we vote as a board. And that means that we're all inclusive. And, you know, we should be addressed as one board. That's right. And whether we've been here one day, 2 months, or a year or 2, or however long, we are one board standing together in solidarity about how we're going to best serve our constituency throughout Ramsey County. And so it's important to me that the board know that, because I do not take this work lightly, and none of us do, but we have to be really intentional about making sure that we are fiscal accountability is in place, and we are being financial management of those dollars, because when one entity overspend, it is impacting other areas that we do to support families and children in our community. And so we all got to be held accountable to our standards, right? And we don't get the opportunity to just do what we want to do because as an individual, we believe that that's the right thing to do, right? And put the burden on others. And so I really appreciate this board and the vision and mission that you guys have put forward that I can come into and be a part of to make sure that that we are working on behalf of all our constituencies across this great county. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rand. Yeah, Commissioner Zhang.
I have had this past weekend to be in community, but also look through a lot of the emails that I've gotten about the sheriff and about the ideal world that they want. The ideal world in which we all come together to solve crime, to solve and end gun violence in our communities. And I will just recap some of those current events because it's super important that we lift this up and we talk about the truth. Mm-hmm. So I will say, I urge all of us as elected leaders, community leaders, and members to come together to solve the tragic and senseless gun violence hurting our communities, and to have honest and courageous conversations about what it truly takes to make our communities safe. Because I, for one, don't believe in just handing out money without accountability, nor was I elected to just rubber stamp a budget. Mm-hmm. Ramsey County has been struck with endless acts of violence perpetuated against our youth, our seniors, our schools, and our places of gathering. And I have to speak out about these events because these are occurring so frequently, and I want us to remind you all and every one of us that this is not normal, nor should it be acceptable. On February 10th, we lost 15-year-old Devin Scott, who was stabbed on his first day of school. He died later that day. And then shortly at his funeral this past Friday, 3 more minors were shot and wounded in a drive-by. That's unacceptable. On February 11th, the day after Devin Scott's death, the St. Paul Police Department shot and killed Ye Zhang, a 65-year-old Hmong American senior and veteran who was hard of hearing, couldn't speak English, and was alone at the time the police gunned him down. That's not acceptable. On Friday, on February 25th, 5 people were shot outside of King's Crossing, and 2 of those individuals died. People are outraged. My constituents are outraged. I am outraged. And all these events are not happening in isolation. I entered in this role with the faith that as the first Hmong American, the youngest to serve, and a longtime social justice activist, that I would have the unique vantage point to serve as a beacon for voices that for too long have been underrepresented and silenced. And I will not be invisible to the public discourse about crime and what truly keeps our communities safe. And as I'm learning, I am bringing along my constituents to learn along with me so that we can unpack what we always hear in the narrative about how we are not funding law enforcement. I will say, I look back. The sheriff's budget has increased by more than 38.5% in the last 10 years. The county's attorney budget has consistently been less than the sheriff's. That is available online for you all to look. And again, I am on the Youth Justice Transformation Committee, and all our numbers show us that our youth are the ones who are Black and brown, are consistently the ones who are entering in the justice system there. And on top of that, I'm on these other boards too, right, on the emergency management services. And what they're telling me in the metro here too, and across the state, is that the majority of our 911 calls are for EMS services. They're not about crime. They're for accessing healthcare. They're using our 911 system as a way to access healthcare. because we know that many people don't have access to regular health care. So to the residents who have reached out to me, I want you to open your hearts. Are you asking this accountability to the other elected officials who are supposed to represent you? My greatest fear and what I know and have seen is that when we want to tokenize people of color and try to put them in racist structures, bad things happen. The other part is if we idolize and don't question the authority of our elected officials, that's when our democracy fails and dies. And so here's what I did. Out of anger and grief, I gathered with community members to march for justice for Yezhong on Sunday. I've spoken to our federal policymakers to request for funds to support stable homes and culturally sensitive trauma services. And every day, I work with the most amazing people at the county to craft policies and reforms to provide services that all people in our society needs. That's affordable housing, stable jobs, access to transportation and healthcare. And you will not believe how little these funds get. I was talking to Ling Becker, and she was sharing with me about some of our amazing programs. And we're just putting in a few $100,000. That's not even enough. And so with all this happening, I believe that we can make more investments in what's been long neglected and make those investments upstream. So that's what we are doing to address crime. We are trying to prevent crime and not waiting, because I will tell you that the shooting that happened at the funeral, it still happened, even though the sheriff was there, and that was reported. He did not prevent crime, it happened. And we will continue to see crime happen if we continuously disregard the funding of the other spectrum of safety, of what keeps us stable. So I just wanted to take that time to share that and share that openly with the people who have been contacting me, especially my constituents, because I owe it to you all, the voters, to hold accountable the people who are leading departments, as well as all of us, about where we are prioritizing and putting our money. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I think that thank you for your words. You hit every point so well and with so much passion, and it really demonstrates why the goals that we are affirming today are so critically important, is the way that we do our work, the way we go upstream, keeps our community safe, makes sure that people have healthy, stable places to live and that we can thrive. And thank you for that. And thanks for lifting up that work and joining this team, both you, Commissioner Zhang, and Commissioner Moran, as you've joined this team, and for the rest of you who have been doing this work for a long time. And it's, we know we're in it, and our staff and our county manager and our deputy county managers and Elizabeth from Policy and Planning and your team that have helped us really make sure that this work is done in a tangible way, and that we are continuing forward. We won't be diverted or distracted, and that we're doubling down here in this vote today on what's important to us. Yeah, County Manager O'Connor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. It's from a process perspective, the last piece I wanted to add is this is not reactive to anything that's happened in recent weeks. This emanates from a January strategic planning session with the board. Every 2 years, the board reaffirms its vision, mission, and goals, or sets its vision, mission, and goals to guide the 2-year budget process. And so there's a confluence of multiple events that you have all spoken about today that coincide with the passage of that vision, mission, and goals, which is a stark reminder of why they matter and a stark reminder of how we're going to go about continuing to do our work and frame conversations around building a stronger community for everyone. And so I just wanted to point out that this truly is the first step of the biennial budget process as the formal action that the board takes. And I ask and invite all commissioners, as well as the broader public, as we go through our budget process, to ask questions around our priorities that are grounded in the vision, mission, and goals the board approved today. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let's go to a roll call vote.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Zhang.
Aye.
Fredum.
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Moran,
Aye.
and Modest Castillo.
Aye. Next, we have our legislative report. I will share the report from Jenna Rourke, our Director of Government Relations, and Melissa Finnegan, but invite you all to add because I know there's so much going on and we're moving in lots of directions, and that all of you have been engaged with our legislators over the last week. We've had many very important and productive meetings and appreciate you all. So on Wednesday in the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, our Justice Involved Youth Community Home Bill is up, and Commissioner Moran will be testifying again. Thank you in advance for that. I know that County Manager O'Connor will be there as well, and County Attorney Choi as well. On Thursday in the House Human Services Finance Committee, I will be testifying on HF 1686, which is our Heading Home Ramsey Continuum of Care funding bill, along with Deputy Mayor Tincher and Randy Roth from who is the director of our program Housing Families in Ramsey County. That bill is being carried by Representative Athena Hollins, and we'll be joined with Hennepin County and Olmsted counties as well around their asks. We expect that the bill will likely be referred to Representative Pinto's committee and Early Childhood and Families Committee, where the work to secure funding will exist. For those who participated in AMC Day on the Hill, thank you very much. I was impressed in all of our meetings. Most of our meetings we were joined by Washington County as well, and it was really great to have that collective voice in those meetings, really lifting up the areas that we are most excited about. We were able, and I'll just go around the table and let you all add any comments because you were in those meetings and heard conversations, but we covered issues of county program aid, which we know is essential to our community in order to not have to further burden our homeowners and renters in property taxes, and as we can continue to lift that up. Also our work around the clean energy bill and funding for anaerobic digestion and our bonding priorities as well. We had great meetings with all of our legislators. And I'm sure I've missed stuff. Early childhood, Heading Home Ramsey, of course, was lifted, and you can all share that as well. Thanks, Commissioner Reinhardt, for meeting with our new Senator Gustafson to talk about our library bill. I understand that you also were there with Anoka County,
Yes.
And that was very productive, and the bill was introduced yesterday, so thank you very much on your work. I also had the opportunity on Friday to attend a meeting with commissioners and staff from Hennepin County Board, called by one of our House members from Richfield, Representative Howard. As we have talked previously at this board, there is a proposal for a 3/4 cent sales tax around that would be collected in the region for transit. That bill is being modified to add another 1/4 cent, so it'd be a 1 cent sales tax increase with 1/4 cents of that sales tax going for affordable housing. And that's the Hornstein bill. And there's a companion in the Senate, is my understanding. So this is a new, interesting modification. The one, so as we listened, I shared concerns that we have listed in the past about a regional sales tax. The one interesting piece about this 1/4 cent sales tax that would be dedicated to housing is that it would be not in the same formula that, right now the transit tax would go to Met Council. People would have to compete for funds in the region for work. The housing sales tax proposal would be based on our needs in the county, so based on households that are burdened, and it would go directly to the counties as opposed to, or local governments, as opposed through another agency, so not through Minnesota Housing. Quite frankly, if the whole sales tax bill had that model, I would feel better about it, because it would be money directly given to us, which would really be a true redistribution of wealth and the sales tax available within the region. So it makes it an interesting conundrum as we're thinking about our position on a sales tax or not for the region, because it's connected to transit and housing, because we know that those things are both connected. So more to come as that bill rolls out as we continue. Commissioner Ortega.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
do we have the final bill yet?
We have a draft. We don't have the final bill, but I'm happy to share that draft with you.
Yeah, can we share it with the board?
Yes.
Because quite frankly, the last I heard with the transit money, and now they added the housing, and I could see why they added the
Yes.
housing, so the transit would move.
Exactly.
Because the transit dollars were all gonna go to the Met Council
That's
to
right.
fill the hole. And my understanding was that that hole would only be filled for the next 3 or 4 years, and then we'd be back to square one. I
Exactly.
just want to make sure that we have all the data in front of us and the final language
Yes.
before we jump to any conclusions on the bill.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Commissioner Ortega, and I shared that with Representative Howard, who's doing just the housing piece of it. Is I shared our concerns around transit, and I commended him for a strategy of the team that the housing piece was well written, but that it captures us stuck in a transit piece. So certainly we'll get you the bill
The other
language.
piece is that we have other sales tax like the cities, and I think we need to take into consideration the impact it has on our homeowners.
Yes.
Because we are the ones that have to grapple with folks that can't pay their property taxes
That's right.
anymore.
Yes, totally agree with you. Thank you for that, Commissioner Ortega. Commissioner Reinhardt.
And I know that when the transit sales tax was first presented, it was one that the state allowed the counties to raise taxes. In this case, it's actually the state setting it in place.
That is correct. So it would be a regional sales tax in the 7-county metro that would be redistributed, that the state is setting into place.
Well, thank you. Well, at least it's that,
Yeah.
rather than passing things on and making it more difficult for folks. I do think that one of the examples that we can show where we know what we're doing with our funds is the Environmental Response Fund. I mean, that comes to us. We know where we need to use it. We look at, there's all kinds of criteria on how we get that money out, but it has made a huge difference in this community. And that's a very small amount of money that we have leveraged. As you pointed out, we try to figure out every possible way to partner with folks to make sure that whatever issue we take on, that we get the biggest amount of impact that we can for every dollar that is spent, and we are held accountable for that.
Right.
Okay, well, this is news.
It will be interesting. Our team, Jen O'Rourke and Melissa Finnegan are at the Capitol right now as we're speaking, and they're watching this. Will keep us closely posted on the situation, but also get us the language. I am with you, Commissioner Ortega. I'm concerned about the transit tax in particular and the way that it's distributed, and that it's short-term and to fill a gap, and the inequity between the region on investments on transit. The housing piece is interesting and the model is good, but tying them together is concerning.
And Madam Chair, even with the housing fund, the reason why I want to know the final language is something, the money could go to counties, but do we have to apply for it? That's number one. Or is it a direct allocation to the county? And if it is, then what is the formula? How is that divided among the metro area?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot of questions then,
On the housing piece, it is specifically calculated based on the number of households that are cost burdened, and it would be a direct appropriation to the county, so not an application. On the housing piece, again, we know the transit is, and that's the disproportionate part.
Well, we should always look at the final language. Right?
Yes.
And I think the people that have been on the legislature know that better
That's
than
right.
I do.
That's right. Yes. Commissioner Moran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to agree with Commissioner Ortega that we should see that final language. I mean, they have almost a $20 billion surplus.
Yes.
And here we want to tax some of the poorest residents more. I think it's really important that we do see the language and follow the bill through because things changes as it's moved through the body. I like the idea of direct appropriation to the counties because, of course, we need more money, otherwise we have to levy to do something, and which is another tax. So I do look forward to seeing that final language and really looking close at the language. But again, I'm not a tax person.
Right.
Especially not with, I think the state should take this on. They know how
Agreed.
important transit is, and they should do a good investment in housing and in transportation, and not allow the burden to fall on the counties once again.
Thank you, Commissioner Moran. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, and you mentioned that we were talking to a lot of legislators with the legislators with the AMC conference, and that was so well done when they had to pivot to go to virtual. But we had, meetings after meetings, which we got in more meetings with legislators. And I assume that you'll probably go over some of those main points. But the biggest one that I think is it's broad, and yet it has the most impact, and that is obviously the county program aid. Because the general public doesn't understand that county program aid means every dollar that the legislature puts in reduces your taxes. Every single dollar. It's relief of from property taxes, and how important that is, because about 85% of what we do is mandated, either the method, the level, or both, for the services that we provide. And we need to provide these services. It's not that we're complaining about that, because it helps people, especially those that are really struggling just to make ends meet if they can. And so these are dollars that are well spent. And we do as we said before, we try to do the very best that we can with every single dollar. But more and more, the legislature has put that on to the property taxpayers. County program aid is the opportunity to put it back where it belongs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so every dollar for county program aid, even though it doesn't sound all that cool, means $1 less in property taxes. And so I know that there's a bill there, but it's still not nearly enough as far as what has been, in many ways, if you look at the history of it, has been transferred from the state to the counties.
That's right.
And so trying to level that and going, pay what you enact, and help us do the best that we can with every dollar. But it's been getting more and more thrown on the backs of taxpayers, the property taxpayers. And this, they've got a surplus.
Right.
And not all of it is one-time money.
That's right. That's right.
And in fact, I think about half of it is probably one-time money, which we can use for River's Edge and other projects.
That's right.
We've got a lot of different things that really need to be done, and the infrastructure that needs to be taken care of. But the county program aid, I think, is worth lifting up here again, so that people understand what it really is that we're talking about.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. And both of you have mentioned the surplus. So as you know, the budget forecast came out yesterday that is predicting another $1.4 billion over the December forecast. So we're sitting at about $19 billion that the state has in additional funds that you both mentioned in the surplus. So it goes back to the conversation. It's very hard to talk about additional taxes when we have a surplus, and what that means to the people and residents in Ramsey County, which is why we have been asking statewide for an increase of $350 million of county program aid, which would bring us Ramsey County receiving an additional $30 million, which would keep our levy flat where it is today, as opposed to increase. Without that, we're in a very difficult situation, which is really important. If anyone's listening, call your legislators and say, put the money in county program aid. That will reduce our overall tax burden. Certainly, it is a really imperative thing. Right now, there's a bill at the legislature. Representative Listlegard has that bill, but it only has $150 million. It doesn't get us to where we need. We actually need $350 million statewide in additional county program aid. With that is the end of the legislative report, but I want to open it up. I know, Commissioner Fretham, you've been doing some work around the motor vehicle sales tax. That's complicated, but I'll let you share what's the status there, please.
Oh, we are still working on that, and it looks like it might be coming forward. Hennepin and Ramsey County don't get their share of taxes off leased motor vehicles, and there's history to that. It was a concession to do something else. Well, now the other thing is no longer being done, so we want our money back. So we're very hopeful that that moves forward. It's a big driver. You know, it's money that goes to our roads and road projects, and we have a lot of those that need to be done. Also, in addition, legislatively, things continue to move forward with the Great Start bill for universal child care, early care and learning. We expect to see the language is done. We expect to see it introduced in the next week or two. So really excited about that, and the early childhood chairs are planning to author. So
Excellent.
I am really excited for that to all come out and to be able to talk some more about it. There'll be a campaign, and it is an opportunity for us to discuss, you know, what do we need in terms of a system that supports early care and learning for kids and their development, for families, and you know, a huge driver of financial insecurity for families with young children is the cost of childcare, but also for our employers who are desperate for people who can work. And there are a lot of people out there that aren't working because they don't want to work to pay 75% of their check to their childcare provider. So a lot of good things happening in this bill, a lot of folks coming together. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you, and thanks for continuing to fight for our young kids and our families, Commissioner Fretham. I know you put a lot of hard work into that, so thank you for that. Yeah, Commissioner McGuire.
Do you want me to, I can talk about our,
Sure, yes.
our legislative meetings, since we did have the Association of Minnesota Counties, our statewide association, had their legislative conference last week, which most of us were participating in virtually. It was a great pivot by AMC. I give a big shout out to Julie Ring and her staff, and our board, our board, and Jennifer O'Rourke and Melissa Finnegan, who really helped make sure those virtual meetings happened. I was, as part of leadership in AMC, I was part of a group that visited with all of the House and Senate leadership. So we had a group of us from all over the state, which is a very powerful statement to our legislators. We had members from Lacaparo County, Cass, Pope, and Dakota County and Ramsey County speaking with one voice to our legislators. And when leadership heard that, they were like, wow, they can hardly imagine that we can all come together on these issues. And so we affirmed our relationship and our intergovernmental partnerships with Speaker Hortman, House Minority Demuth, Senate Minority Leader Johnson, House Majority Leader Jamie Long. Unfortunately, Majority Leader Dietzig was not feeling well, so we couldn't meet with her. But she has come to our conferences and is very supportive of our issues. But they were all very glad to hear. We talked about county program aid, CPA. We led off with that, and we all want that. We talked about corrections and probation funding, housing investments and rental assistance, SCORE, waste management, recycling, broadband, mental health. These were all issues that all of us, all 87 counties feel want support in these areas, and it was really powerful to tell leadership that they can find support with counties on those issues. So it was a great conference, and even though we had to go virtual, I think we got a lot of meetings in, and we were all safe doing it. So thanks to everyone who participated in that, and I think we did a great job, everyone who participated. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner McGuire. Any other last legislative reports? Yeah, Commissioner Reinhardt.
I just, the motor vehicle sales tax. I think one thing that, and you said, they took it away, whatever. I mean, this was, Hennepin and Ramsey County were specifically cut out of the funds.
Right.
And so
Say that again. What?
The state legislature, the motor vehicle sales tax funds, they specifically cut out any of the funding within our counties that is raised in our counties from getting any of the money. Cut us out. So this is only, yes. I know, hard to believe, isn't it? But I think, and you said it, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that it was understood as people are listening, that what we're asking for is what every other county has, all of this, and so it belongs within our counties to help us with transit and transportation and roads. Our fellow metro counties were more than happy to take the funds from us. I mean, I'm sorry, but they were.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not, I guess, again, we're looking at fairness in how things are done. And when that happened, it was really unbelievable, and it has to be undone.
Yeah.
So thank you, Commissioner Fretham, for raising that up.
Maybe we should post that on Commissioner Atkins' social media post bragging about how much better Washington County roads are plowed. Be like, well, maybe if you give us our money back.
Yes.
That's right. Yes. All right. With that, I'm going to turn to County Connections with the county manager.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I don't know how to follow that perfectly, but I'll do my best. First, I want to thank staff in all spots across the organization last week for pivoting during a tricky week of weather, unpredictable weather, trying to sort out where to go in terms of forecasts and make sure both employees and residents were safe. It was really, I was trying to think back the last time a snow event had caused Ramsey County to modify service delivery predates my time with the county, and someone helped remind me it was the last time the governor had signed a similar executive order around snow, and I said, I don't remember when that was. I wasn't working here, and so it had been a long time. The difference now, though, is the technological tools we had in place to be able to respond were different. Unfortunately, our practice during COVID helped us practice new muscles about how to be flexible and modify. And I just appreciate the work of everybody. One tangible example I wanted to share of the ways in which we work together across jurisdictions during times like this. And emergency shelter and homelessness is another really good example. There was actually a nice story on Channel 9 about the work of our warming spaces. But in St. Paul, we have county roads, and under contract, normally the city plows those roads on behalf of the two jurisdictions. But they reached out and requested support during the snowstorm because of all the different roads and pieces they were trying to manage in their own system and the way the snow was falling and the weather. And our public works crew plowed county roads then in St. Paul during the emergency period, as well as taking care of the county system. Huge benefit. And I can tell you the city was appreciative, but it's a big deal. And that's our folks stepping up and making sure our system remained usable as well during that time. But obviously it's things like that in those mutual aid moments that are both deeply important because we ask for help from others as well as we go, but they really can drain your team. So I'm hoping for a sunny week the rest of this week after another little bit of icy weather yesterday. Thanks to everybody. I want to give a special shout out to our very own Deputy Director, Chris Crutchfield, over in Community Corrections. He's been named as the new Executive Director of Ujamaa Place. Yes. Chris has worked with the county. Yeah. You've all seen announcements going out in different ways. Chris has worked with the county for a long time, and as a part of that work, we just want to give a shout out as that message has been shared in many different places, and just want to be so happy for Chris as our leaders continue to make a difference both here and in other places as well. Two other, I thought I had two. Oh, yeah. It's all one, I think, right here. I wanted to briefly mention the email you received last week from Ali, the Interim Director of Financial Assistance, regarding operational statistics for financial assistance services. If you didn't get a chance to look at it, please do. But one of the biggest challenges we've been talking about, we will continue to talk about, the board invested recently ARPA money in as we looked at what we had spent, and reallocating is the backlog that we've seen on caseloads in financial assistance. And that dashboard that was linked to in the email gives you some of a picture of understanding the dynamics of what's going on. There's been some other data I've had a chance to see as well and look at with the team that's not even fully there right now, but I do want to highlight it because it takes you one step even further in understanding this. If we go back and look all the way back to 2019 at the beginning of the year up until recently, we've seen the number of applications have increased 60% just during that time period, but the number of approved applications has remained almost steady, okay? So what's happened is the denial rate has increased significantly. The number of overall applications has increased significantly. And these are important dynamics because as we think about pieces like this, part of that is recognizing that the min benefits system coming on, we've talked about before, that doesn't fully explain it because what we see is we had about a denial rate of about 27% month over month, every single month. And then you hit March of 2020, it's 27%. And then in April, it becomes 38%. And in May, it becomes 46% in 2020. And I went back and looked, and the governor's executive order on the stay-at-home order happened on March 27th of 2020. Now, I can't exactly tell you how these two things correspond, but I'm also here to tell you they in some ways must have a correlative effect here of what's going on. And we're digging into all of this. But part of the backlog we're seeing right now is not fewer approved applications month over month. It's a much significant higher of denied applications. I'm not here to tell you why exactly they're being denied. Is it insufficient information, misunderstanding of what eligibility requires, changes, et cetera, et cetera. But this is the kind of work we're trying to dig into right now. And I want to end by just appreciating that financial assistance through the deputy county manager to the director and on down, the work that's happening, assessing and changing staffing to add more clerical staff to screen and assign new applications and answer calls, freeing up financial workers to be able to process more applications. We're addressing workload issues, including an all-hands-on-deck approach in which workers from every section in the department have taken on some level of intake applications. We've advocated for additional staff, in part in the conversations that you've helped to invest in here, including we secured a waiver from the Minnesota Department of Human Services that for the first time allowed us to hire part-time financial workers from other counties to help us work through the backlog. So for people who have already been trained, if they're working part-time and would like to work part-time with Ramsey County as well, that can now happen. And training is a barrier to hiring new employees to be able to work in this system normally. And funding for modernization of systems through targeted research and a residents-informed process. And pursuing virtual assistance workstations at service centers, hoping to make faster connections. We're trying many different approaches. We're going to keep talking about this. It'll be in front of you throughout the year through workshops and budget conversations. But I just wanted to highlight it here as a really big deal. And if you hadn't seen the email yet, please make sure you give Interim Director Ali's email a chance to spend a few moments with it.
Yes, Commissioner Ortega.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I think it is a big deal. And I think it should be on top of our list for this year, just to monitor. I could tell you that the constituents I work with, I mean, this is a big chunk of it. And then, of course, you're going back to a system that's that's in transition or whatever. But we need to know more about what's going on. I am curious to understand about the denial rates. What's behind that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ortega, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think we all are right now, and that's part of why I just wanted to tee up today what the numbers showed, but what's behind that is a part of what we'll keep bringing back. I do want to end on a glimmer of good news too, which is in terms of the process, applications waiting to be processed, we have brought down the number in the backlog by 20% over the past 2.5 months. And so these efforts are taking hold in a positive direction, which is not to say we're there yet. But we are on the correct trajectory after months of seeing it moving the other direction.
So what is it with hiring folks from other counties to help with the backlog? Do we need special permission for that?
We did.
And explain the rationale.
Sure.
I wasn't aware of that.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ortega. So one of the biggest challenges counties across the state are experiencing is even when you're able to hire financial workers, which in this hiring environment has been challenging for counties, the training that is run by the state can be a barrier, and so it can create delays in onboarding. So our team went to the state and said there are people who work part-time in other counties around the region who may be interested in doing more than part-time work. Can we have employees that are working for more than one county? Because you don't have to get them through that onboarding process again. We received a waiver from the state to be able to do that.
But why, to begin with, why can't we just go out and hire? Why do we need that permission?
I don't know the specific regulatory reason why, but we did need a waiver for it.
Huh.
Probably state laws.
Right. So the barriers for us doing our work continue, Commissioner Frethem.
Something else we need to amend.
Right.
Add it to the list.
You might have to go back to the legislature at some point.
Thank you for this. One measure that I hope we can look at as we're looking at reasons for denial are folks who apply or denied, reapply, and get approved. I know when you've got a backlog like this and it takes longer to process, if you don't get to that application until 15 days later, you realize they're missing something, the system's got to send out a paper letter for you to get, and then once that's finally received, if you get your mail, because I haven't been doing that and I don't have a mailbox anymore. It's in a snowbank. So then you have to, figure out how to get that paperwork in. Then it has to be scanned and get back to the worker in time for them to come back to the case and process it and approve it. And I know in the past, one of the things we saw a lot with some of our county partners is a lot of folks, they just couldn't make it through the process in time. They get auto-denied. They'd have to start all over again, so then you're processing a whole new application that someone's filled out, and this time they finally got the paperwork and it gets approved, so that denial with later approval, that would be good to hear, because that helps us talk about timelines for processing and options for extension, and what can we do in these situations to make sure that we're not, we want applications to be processed quickly, but when we have far more than we could have imagined, we need some leniency to potentially extend those, because it'll save folks time in the end. It's not because we don't want to get them done on time, but it would be a time saver to extend those application timelines in some case. And then, you can hire workers, but we know that it's one of the hardest jobs for us to fill. It's a hard job. There are a lot of complicated rules, and that training is essential because you need to learn how to use a program that your great-grandfather built, because it's over 30 years old. You knew I was going to bring that in, right? Yes. You knew I was going to talk about that. You can't, it's not an intuitive system. Maxis, you can't even use a mouse. It's all keystrokes. So it's not that it's an easy thing to learn. And so not only do you have to hire someone, do they have to learn all these complex program rules, but they have to go on training on how to use the system, and then they have to actually use the system well enough to learn how to use it and get through all the applications.
Yeah. It's a lot, thank you. And I agree with you, Commissioner Ortega. This is probably one of the most important areas that we have to address. And I really appreciate the entire team, and Ali Ali and Kathy Hadeen, who worked really focused to say, how do we tackle this issue? I appreciate that a lot. It's the number one call we get in our office from constituents. And if we think about being residents first, FAS is often the first place people come in, and if we're backlogged, we're not providing that. So I really appreciate the dedication and focus as we hone in on this issue. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, and I think that, the fact that you have to start over. If you fill out an application for something, credit card or whatever it is, if you miss something, they say, oh, can you get that to us? Okay, so you get it to them. Now, having that extension means that then they can add something. But if you miss that deadline and they say, okay, now you start all over again, you go, what? I thought I already did that part of it. I did 3/4 of it, or I did 90% of it. Mm-hmm. But then you have to start over again. So you're resubmitting things. And that gets so frustrating. And so the extension, it's like, okay, if you know that something is coming in, if there's some way to do that. What a lot of people don't understand also is that most of this is regulated by the state. Mm-hmm. It's not as if we could just say, hey, let's give them a little more time. The state says, no, if it's not here, then they're done and you have to start over. And so it comes back to the whole program and what we're doing. But we implement at the county level. And we have to follow the rules that are provided, and it's very cumbersome and ridiculous. Anyhow, but my question actually was about the recent newspaper article about Medicaid and people being taken or losing their eligibility. So how is that going to impact us? Because I would think that if you can't get medical care, okay, you're looking at me like you haven't.
No, I'm sorry, I'm listening.
Oh, I thought maybe you had an answer. Anyway.
All-knowing county manager, what's the answer?
It's like, okay, tell me. But I do think that we have to, there are other things that are happening like that because of post-COVID that I think we need to, or it's not post-COVID, I just had COVID. What am I saying? But the impact on systems across the county, across the state, is going to be felt now more than it has been before.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Reinhardt, and to all, actually. I mean, these dynamics, you're hitting on the correct dynamics. And part of why I want to keep bringing the topic up is because of how important it is to the points here. And we need to do this work out loud. And in the same way we call for accountability in other spaces, we need to call for it in our work too and continue to do this. We'll continue to come back with some updates. And there's a number of different pieces unwinding as the federal emergency ends that are concerning, right? Mm-hmm. And it leads to kind of my two overarching things I might end on. One, a number of board members were here about 6 or 7 years ago, and we were having conversations around caseload and worker challenge burnout in child protection specifically. Mm-hmm. And we built a dashboard, and that conversation has significantly changed and improved since that time. But it took data like this and focused efforts month over month, and it was really hard. And I remember that because I was close to it, and I know many board members here were as well. I see some analogous things. And so I'm hopeful. We've seen progress start to move in the right direction already in a number of different measures. The broader part that I'll end on that ties into Commissioner Reinhardt's question a bit is it is important to step back too and appreciate the degree to which these are historic times we've been living through. And I think day to day this is such a challenge for all of us as humans. But whether we're looking at traffic fatalities and challenges on our roadways, speeding and dangerous driving, or we're looking at mental health across all ages, but particularly youth, school attendance, and young people who are behind grade level, financial assistance, public safety, all of these systems, we can draw that similar line to what I just did today around March of 2020, and to see the tails that exist to today. And there is this challenge where day to day, so many of these things become individualized conversations, and we're missing the umbrella sitting over the top of all of it. And I don't say that with a perfect solution as to what to do, other than we need to keep considering that as we do our work and recognize whole people, families, communities are suffering in a way that are manifesting itself. And then to this conversation, how do we invest in those incisive, correct ways, whether one time or ongoing, to try to blunt these impacts across those systems? And that applies to every one of those conversations. And I think you all started there today, and we kind of find our way back there at this point. So more to come. We'll continue to bring this forward. I really appreciate the attention and that you all clearly already read your email coming in today. So thank you very much.
Thanks, County Manager. So we are now at 10. We do have a workshop, and we're going to move to outside board and committee reports. So just be cognizant that we've had a great conversation here, but we do have an agenda for the day. But I want to go around the table. I'm going to start with you, Commissioner Fretham.
I had a couple of great meetings. Metro Conservation District, I was reelected vice chair for another year. You know, a lot of the tables we sit around are working to address particularly youth criminal activities, so youth justice transformation. We met, and Mai Chong and I serve on that, and thank you, Rena, for joining us as well. We got a great presentation from our Young Adults Council, or YAC, Youth Advisory Committee, there it is. It's YAC, and a peer mentorship program that they're doing with other youth that are coming out of juvenile detention, which I think is amazing. Similarly, I serve on the Northeast Youth and Family Services, and what they shared of work that they're doing is a community connections program. They do a lot with our diversion youth in the suburbs, and they are doing programming where youth going through this program are able to connect to community resources. And one of the places they go is the Ramsey County Library, and they are able to meet with librarians, get a backstage tour of the library, and know that they are welcome and invited into that space and the programming, in addition to other community resources. And they're looking to expand that program not just to youth and diversion, but multiple other youth, because we know our connection to community helps prevent crime. Also, our JDA Advisory Committee met. I'm really, really excited. This is the smaller committee authorized by the JDA. We're working to plan out our next steps and course and timeline for the JDA on the Rice Creek Commons development. And it's just a great group of people. We had a really productive meeting, and I'm just very hopeful on that front.
Thank you, Commissioner Fretham, and thanks for leading that work on Rice Creek Commons. We're very hopeful, big things to come. Yeah. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I think I will start with the Library Board. Grace Atkins was elected chair of the Library Board, and moving things forward. I do want to kind of tie in, actually, I mentioned, yes, I had COVID last week. I went to NACO, and thank goodness it was on the way home that I got it, because we're going to be debriefing on NACO this afternoon, and that was probably the most intense legislative conference I've ever been at, with all the work that was going on there. But it was interesting because I had the library board meeting on Wednesday night, and on Tuesday night I got back and I thought, I don't feel so great. So I took a COVID test and it came back negative. I was like, okay. But I thought, I still don't feel really good, so I think I'm just going to play it safe. And I'm not going to go to the in-person, and so I checked to make sure that I could do that. And since I'm not a voting member of it, but a liaison, I was allowed to go virtually. And so I did. And so on Thursday morning, I thought, well, I should double check again. And not only, it was like the moment I started the test, it was clearly, you've got COVID. I didn't believe it, because I thought, well, I just have a cold. And that must be something wrong with that, because that's not how this test works. So I did a second one, same thing. And so my point here is, for people that are not feeling well, you should test, and you should test probably more than once. But had I gone to that meeting, I would have exposed everyone. And I'm so glad that I took that extra caution and didn't do it. And so I'm letting people know I'm fully, boosted in all the things that I need to be. But the fact of the matter is, it is still out there. And I know there were other commissioners, not on our board, thank goodness, but that came back with COVID as well. And so it's not over. It's part of what we have to do right now. But if you're not feeling well, play it safe for other people. So I wanted to bring that up. But anyhow, the library board meeting went very well. The strategic plan and moving forward, learning more about what the legislation means and how that works, and the excitement that I heard from within the library board was really fun to hear, because they're going to be able to do so much more, I think, with programming and the things that you look at as library services rather than just kind of the day-to-day operations of things. There was concern about getting a new director in place, and we all share that, but we're going to make sure that we take the right steps that we need to take so that when we get a new library director, that they stick around. So, put it bluntly. I also wanted to highlight the fact that one of the things that I was not able to do, and it turned out that we had to do it virtually anyhow, but the Northeast Metro Climate Action Group, I was scheduled to give an update on what was happening in Ramsey County with climate resilience. Commissioner Modis Castillo stepped in and was ready to go, and then it went virtual, and so we were both there. But she made the presentation, and I have to tell you, I've gotten so many comments after about how great it was and what a great job you did. And they really felt like they got double the volume of information and knowing how excited that we really are as we're moving forward and really making equitable climate resilience change within our county. So I wanted to give you a shout out as well. People were very pleased that you were there and were able to provide the information. And I was glad that I could participate as much as I could. So there were a lot of other things that went on, obviously, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner Moran.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things, too. So I participated in the EGCI Park and Library onboarding and was able to find out a lot about what's happening in the county libraries. So I look forward to everyone moving forward on that. I also attended EGCI Public Works onboarding, so I'm still getting on board. I just want to maybe highlight I also included in the meeting with the Performance Council meeting, which was a 3-hour meeting, but a really, really excellent meeting and information that came out of that. I also been doing CO11s, and so I've been looking at the overview, the big view from state, city, and county. So I met with a couple of council members since we're in the same building, right?
Yes.
So I was able to do that. I'm a part of we heard that I'm going to be testifying on the Justice Involved Youth Bill, the legislature. I also had an opportunity to speak to a social inequality in health group that came from the University of Minnesota, which is a group of young people who's going into the healthcare field, something I've been doing for years as a legislator. But, you get, we talk about out-of-home placement, we talk about all the rules of the healthcare system, Medicaid, whatever, and that, tying their passion to what's really happening around policies and practices. It's always been really good to share with them, my journey along the way, but also hear what they aspire to do and then connect them to a process at the Capitol so they can bring those real lived experiences on that decision-making process. I'm going to also be testifying, that's tomorrow, but I testify in the House Capital Investment Committee. And why is that important? Because we have a bill up there at the Capitol around River's Edge.
Right.
And we want that investment to happen here in St. Paul, which is a part of Ramsey County, that would really allow Ramsey County to, once it's completed, we would bring in more revenue to do the awesome work that we're doing. But we also are going to divide that revenue between the county, the city, and our school board. And I think, $5 million extra can really be helpful to St. Paul, who really do not have a huge tax base because of government buildings, because of nonprofits, because of our religious institution. So residents, we need that. And I would just want to say out loud, I want more information about this. One, why we have to go to the state to hire more people, I'm concerned about that. And I'm very concerned about the issue that you and Nicole brought up earlier. So we'd love to learn more about
And
that.
the motor sales.
The motor sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It
excellent.
disturbs all of us.
Exactly. Commissioner Zhang.
No report.
Okay.
Thank you.
You've been busy.
Yes.
We know. Commissioner
Yes,
McGuire,
I know
thank
you've
you.
been busy. I'll try to be brief, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Just on the legislative conference that we talked about already, our AMC, we did have the governor come and speak, and he was great to come in and talk to us. We look at him as a great partner in our work. Also, as president of the association, I gave a state of the counties, and I just want to highlight that I talked about the importance of everyone having a voice and providing a space for using that voice and the importance of listening, which I think we're always trying to do at this county. So our legislative conference, we did have our AMC board meeting after that, and I know, Madam Chair, you're the representative on that, but while I've got the floor, do you want me just to talk about just a couple of things we did at the AMC board meeting, which we approved our amicus brief policy so that when counties want help with some of their lawsuits, we can have a policy on whether we join in on their lawsuits or not. We also got an update on the community supervision funding, new funding formula. We have 82 out of 87 counties have sent in their support for that corrections funding. And, I talk a lot about why it's important to have statewide support because we have statewide legislature. And if we want funding from the legislature, it really helps to have a lot of voices talking to their legislators. And so this is really important that we will have 87. I mean, we are on track to get 87 counties signing on, which is an amazing feat in itself. And then just to remind people, we have our leadership summit coming up on March 29th and 31st, and our leadership summits are wonderful, great leadership training, and we have a board meeting after that. So that's about AMC. I wanted to give a shout out to the Suburban Ramsey Family Collaborative. They had their quarterly meeting. Ling Becker is our chair for this year, and they connected with community leaders about violence in our schools and how we can support each other, after the recent tragic deaths that are occurring in our communities. And so, we're all dealing with these issues, and they had a community conversation about that. So wanted to acknowledge that. I sat in on the climate action team meeting or presentation that you did, and Connie Bernardi was there. So we want to feature that presentation at our next Active Living meeting. It was a great presentation on climate action, and we want it to be everywhere. So we're going to have it at our next Active Living meeting. And then, Madam Chair, I think the last thing I'll talk about is that I'm fortunate as part of our National Association leadership to be, and as part of Ramsey County. Ramsey County has been recognized for our great work in using our American Rescue Plan dollars. These are the investments that we got directly to use during the pandemic, but we're continuing to use them. And we have done great work in our child care, our early childhood academy, our driver's license academy, housing initiatives, and public health careers pathways. And so I'm going to be at the White House tomorrow talking about our great investments that we have. And Madam Chair, we know you'll get. We wish you were joining us. I know you were invited to do that, and you're staying home as appropriate. But we want to shout out to Elizabeth Tollisman, December Brakefield, Tina Curry, Ling Becker, and Carrie Collins for helping us put together all the data that will help inform our presentation at the national level and to the White House.
Thank you for doing that, Commissioner McGuire. Commissioner Ortega.
No report, Madam
Thank you. One last thing I want to also lift up, this board supported the Equal Rights Amendment and the work there. We do have a hearing tomorrow in the House, and I'll be testifying on Friday. We might actually have a chance to have equal rights, at least in Minnesota. I will just say it is important for you to reach out to your legislators. There's a little bit of, even in this trifecta at the legislature, concerned because it will require a constitutional amendment, means it needs to go on the ballot, and they're concerned about putting more than one thing on the ballot at a time because the legacy has to be voted on legacy funds. So one more reason why we can't have equal rights, but there could be both and. So let's go back, make sure you lift that up to your legislators that we can handle two things on the ballot, equal rights and our environment. Thank you,
Madam
Commissioner.
Chair, I just have to say I am so excited about the fact that we're going to testify and we actually have a shot at this. One of the things that was interesting when we passed the support here previously was the fact of the impact on the county and our budget.
That's right.
This is not only the right thing to do, but there's an impact that if you don't make a living wage just based on your gender, then you end up with having to be getting more services from the county.
Right.
And so there are so many reasons, but it's high time. And I'm so glad that you're going to be there.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. We're now going to adjourn this meeting. We're going to take a very quick restroom break and reconvene here at 10:20 for the EGCI. I think this should be the last EGCI workshop. Awesome. Okay, we've had lots. Commissioner Reinhardt will be on housing stability and parks and rec. And then Commissioner Reinhardt, Commissioner Fretham, and Commissioner Moran will be representing us at the Joint County Courts meeting over the lunch hour. And then we will reconvene again at 1:30 downstairs to do a NACO legislative conference debrief. With that, we are adjourned.
Got ahead of ourselves.